pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. At this time, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? Audience, for a second time, is there anyone that would like to address the board? For a third and final time, is there anyone who would like to address it? Seeing none, public portion is ended at 6:02. And just for, I'm just going to read the public portion statement that's on our agendas, just for as a reminder for our continuing board members and a notice for our new board members. It shall be the policy of the West Haven Board of Ed for individual members, if they so desire, to engage in dialogue with members of the general public during the time allowed on its agenda for public participation. Dialogue must be combined with information gathering purposes, and at no time will individual persons or personnel be the subject of discussion. It is understood that the board members and administration will be given adequate time to research any inquiry resulting from such dialogue, and shall do so on specific direction of the chair. It will be the authority of the chair to cut off dialogue at any time. That being said, if we could continue our questions to the end of the presentations that we have going forward from whoever is presenting on the microphone, I think that would help them smoothly present their information, and then we would be able to ask questions at the end of those. And that being said, so I'll give them a minute to get it in place, and we will have the superintendent give the administration status of school update, which I believe will be the superintendent's recommended budget. That was right on cue, Joe.
Thank you. So I think Judy's got one announcement, and then I'm going to talk just briefly on give the board an update on COVID, and then we'll go into the budget presentation tonight. I'll explain. We had a couple of setbacks that probably should know, but I think we did it.
Okay, I just wanted to share, last Thursday, we had a meeting with new teachers that we hired, first and second year teachers. We had a roundtable discussion, and I had mentored teachers there. And it went very well. The new teachers were very receptive. There was a lot of good questions, a lot of good sharing. So we're going to continue this. We're going to have another roundtable in March, which the new teachers will be coming to, besides the mentoring and the shadowing that they get to do in their building. So it's just another way that we're helping to keep our new teachers informed, a relaxed situation where they can ask questions and a lot of information to be shared. So I wanted to let you know that that was going on.
Neil, I think you pulled up of that microphone like up to the corner of the podium.
I think I'm good. So we, our office, some of you may know, I spoke to Kevin today, got hit by the COVID bug over the weekend. Matt Cavallaro, who does a lot of the budget presentation normally, I just interrupt him usually, is online with, so he'll be able to answer more specific questions about individual line items and where money goes and how money is spent in different accounts. I just say, do we have the money? And when he says yes, we kind of go forward. Also, Stefania Izzo Larry, Dr. Larry is our director of special ed. She was home congested. I know her, at least one of her kids has COVID, so I believe she's online as well. Special education is a big part of our budget, so she's available. But we do have all of our curriculum coordinators here today, and Carolyn Foe, who's from the special ed department, and Jim Tercio. They'll also be able to answer any specific questions about any of the services. I've also asked, because Matt isn't here, kind of a just in case and as a backup, my assistant Tammy is here, and if there are any questions or any information that you want that we can't provide you with tonight, she'll take the notes and we'll get the information to you guys as quickly as possible. So I think we have it covered. It's a little bit unusual, but we'll do the best we can. I wanted to start out by just going over, since our last meeting, and we anticipated the COVID, the masks and the kits, just kind of give you an update as to where we are. And our overall attendance, which has been great. We've had about consistently at least 85% staff attendance every day. And we were around 78 when we first started. We're doing daily attendance for the first couple of weeks back. We're over 80% now, students back. So I think just like the positivity rate is going down, hopefully we're seeing a peak. But I will tell you, again, based on what I saw and with the coverage that we can do, you know, we were never in any jeopardy of closing schools. I think it's a great thing. I also think it's a credit to our staff because they've done a terrific job of pitching in and covering classes and doing those kinds of things. But overall, things are very good. We haven't had to do as much as I anticipated. We have gotten, since our last meeting, two orders of N95 masks, which have been given out to the schools. We've also gotten some from our emergency operating center. We're working with Joe Soto and Maureen Lills from the health department. We've got over 4,000 masks, and we got them out to the schools as quickly as possible. The test kits that we received 2 rounds of, in both rounds we received test kits. The first round, we were able to give every one of our staff members at least 1 kit. Now, the way we have talked about a distribution, I had talked about distribution at the last meeting. That's not the way you're supposed to use the ones for the families and students. You're supposed to keep them on hand. And then when they're requested or when we send someone home with symptoms, you know, we're supposed to make the test available to them. So we've done that, and we're not going to refuse anybody. You know, we've done a pretty good job, I think, of accounting for all of them because, you know, they're a hot commodity. So if you need a test, we've been making everyone, including our employees, by the way, sign them out, which, again, kind of just keeps everybody honest. I mean, we're not going to tell it. As long as we have them, we're not going to say no. I also today I've been communicating with the state representative for, and it looks like the federal government did set up a site where every family can order 4 masks. We'll put that link up and we'll get that out on social media tomorrow in case people need to take. The only thing is, I don't believe they're going to be available till later in January, and hopefully by then we'll need as much. But overall, you know, I'm very pleased with student and staff attendance. You know, and again, I think it's a credit to our staff because it's easy to stay home in times like this. We got little sniffles or whatnot. And we don't want anybody coming to work sick, but you know, the attendance has been great, and we're going about our business. But I think that's been really good. Oh, one other thing, and Kevin, I should have mentioned this to you today when we spoke. I'm going to try to schedule the next meeting at Bailey Middle School. What I'd like to do prior to the meeting, and we'll set it up if we've got to do like a special meeting at 5:30 and then the regular meeting at 6 maybe in the media center. I'd like to go do it at Bailey only because the second semester is starting next week on the 25th, I think it's Tuesday, and the 4 new modular classrooms should be open and ready to go, and get a little tour there if that's Ken and he's available to take us through there. The one thing that they're working on this week is they have to put a sidewalk in because it's a little bit, but you know, this time of year it's muddy and whatnot. So hopefully that'll be done next week and we'll be ready to go. Talk to Rob today. We're gonna, at least for the beginning, keep a dedicated security guard outside in the area. Hopefully we'll be able to scale that back. But we thought, you know, while the classrooms are new and you know, the kids are traveling back and forth, it would be a good idea to do that. Chris, all the life safety stuff is ready to go and hooked up. The fire marshal approved everything.
Not yet. We have some finer things this week to finish up, but be ready to go.
We anticipate they'll be ready to go. Yep. So hopefully they'll be open be ready for next Monday, and we'll be able to use them beginning next Tuesday. And again, most of you know that school is in need. They've also, I don't know that they poured the concrete, but they're ready to do so, then we had the snow. That play area outside is going to add a lot of space because the gym isn't very large, and sometimes there are up to 3 classes there. So again, that's a great use of our COVID funds. While we can't use it this time of the year, hopefully we'll be able to get the kids outside and that creates more space. But you'll see it. It looks really nice back there. Yep. It needs some help, Pat. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I went there by myself out to school because it was prior, or it might have been prior to school starting, just to kind of look, because I knew that space was really a premium, and we're talking about the teachers traveling. I don't know that we can do it this year, and it's not that big, is what I noticed. And I thought at one time, you may remember this, they were actually even using it for music lessons or instruments.
They do have the machines in there. Carpet probably needs to be cleaned and replaced. But I think there's things that have small classes in there.
Yeah, as you know, it's really pretty. We also met with because the library, as you know, is also very crowded, and there's only 2 or 3 classes there. We met with a representative from W.B. Mason, who sells us a lot of our school supplies and some furniture. And it was supposed to be a couple of weeks ago. They were going to give us a whole new design about how we can, retool the library, almost to make it more like the media center at the high school, where the kids can have individual spaces and work and, get on the computer and whatnot. I haven't seen anything yet, so I'm waiting for that. But we are trying to dress Bailey up and create more space in a place that, as you know, needs it very bad. All right, with that,
Before you start the
Sure.
budget process, would it be okay if we edited the agenda to have the student reps go just in case they need to leave before the end of the?
Ken, that's a great idea. In fact, I thought about that and forgot about it. It's a really good idea.
Not that I'm sure they're not.
No, I think it's
Waiting,
I think
waiting
that's
to listen to all the finances.
I think
Just in
that's
case, it is a school night.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for thinking of me. I see some new faces. I'm just going to introduce myself again. My name is Danielle Ortiz, and I'm one of the Board of Ed reps. There's 2 other reps that the account and Kennedy, but they couldn't make it tonight, unfortunately. So first, I would like us to have a moment of silence for Teddy Valentine. He's a high schooler, and on the hockey rink, there was an unfortunate accident and he passed away. Thank you. So first up, we have the Peer Advocates fundraiser. The need was great this year because of everything, going on, and, we were able to supply all the families with toys. So it was a great success. The Peer Advocates worked really hard on the Toys for Joy fundraiser. And we just wanted to thank everybody who bought calendars and everybody who donated toys or funds. We really appreciate it, and it all went to good use. The interviews for the new ANT program happened a couple weeks ago, and both juniors and seniors were selected to do the program this spring. So it will begin April 1st, and it will finish June 9th, and hopefully by then we'll all have our ENT licenses. 2 of the Board of Ed reps are going to be in it, myself and Nadia Khan. So we're really looking forward to it. We're counting on the days already. The West Haven High School band will be having their winter band concert on the 27th at 7 o'clock, and I know they'd love to see you all there if you're able to make it. I believe it will be in the auditorium. Yeah, it will be in the auditorium. So the new metal detectors are running smoothly, and I know students are feeling safer that they're in place, especially because everything that's been going on recently. But really, it's a really quick process. It's improving every day, and I'm thankful for them at least. This past fall, there were 3 all-state athletes Donaldo Yanis from the boys soccer team, and Joe Hawkins and Keyshawn Topa from the football team. So I think congratulations to them for representing us well. West Haven High School has 2 new partnerships with Southern and Alberta's Magna to allow students to earn college credit at the school, and I believe it's starting this fall, so that's exciting. I hope students take up the opportunity because it's completely free to earn the college credit. The Career Center will be holding their annual homecoming on January 26th. Alumni from West Haven High School are able to return back to their Career Center for help in finding jobs, career paths, and applying for colleges. So with the help of the Career Center and their homecoming events, 6 seniors and 1 graduate received scholarships from Eli Lilly to attend the trade program. And we are able to choose from plumbing, electrical, or HVAC. So there was a minor issue on social media regarding the bomb squad and their fiesta-themed hockey game, but it was sorted out and both parties were called in to discuss the issue and make sure everybody understood what was going on. It's because some students found the fiesta theme offensive, so they changed it to a USA theme instead. Was trying to make sure they had a meeting to understand why it was offensive so that, both parties felt respected. But that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's turn to my budget, which I'm presenting to you tonight. I just want to, Matt, can you hear us? And is Matt online?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm able to hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I just.
Hello. Could you hear me? There's an issue with the audio.
I can hear you.
Yeah, no, you can't hear me. I'm trying to talk.
I'll start the presentation and go through what we sent you guys. Again, all of the curriculum coordinators are here tonight. Let me start with Colette Bennett, all the way over. She is the language arts coordinator, social studies coordinator, media center. Everybody in central office does wears a lot of hats. We have
so they can hear him. If you're gonna hear that.
Nicole Danishevsky. I'm sorry. No, she was Nicole Danishevsky was our math coordinator and also handles our professional development. Karen LeCove, who's an assistant pupil personnel director. Raphael Lafroche, who oversees the science program in the school district, as well as EL. Laura Rabinowitz, who's her assistant. That's a program that's growing on leaps and bounds. So that's a job that was added this year because it just got too much to do science and in EL. And Marissa Akampora, who's at our central office, and she's overseeing a lot of the additional programs which we added this year as a result of the COVID funds. She's helped and assisted Matt.
Love to stay by if there's
summer programs, after school programs.
because there's feedback or not.
One of the reasons I asked them to come to had them be prepared to come, because one is to see on a spreadsheet the amount of money we spend. But it's another thing to hear how the money affects our kids and helps our teachers deliver a better product.
Yeah, because when the plays out loud.
So,
so it just keeps coming back.
And again, I don't know who's doing
Mattis.
That's Matt doing it, yeah.
Okay. So I don't know, we'll try to do the best we can, but on your sheet, you can see the requested proposal that we're going to ask the city for, or I'm recommending we ask the city for, is $89,960,421. Now, that's money that is what we anticipate getting from the city based on the city was required. For those of you who are familiar with the Municipal Accountability and Review Board, the city was required to submit a 5-year plan, 5-year budget. That's the plan that was adopted. We don't anticipate the city changing. We can ask for more money this year. I don't believe we need it because we do have the benefit of additional alliance funds. For those of you, for the new board members, we are what is known as an alliance school district. That's one of 33, I believe there are now, districts across the state of Connecticut, which have, which are disadvantaged economically. So we receive an additional allotment from the state. Last year, the state passed a 2-year budget. We received an increase last year. We expect another almost 1 million, slightly under $1,400,000 this year. That's been an ongoing grant for at least, I think this is the 7th year. I don't believe it's going away anytime soon. It's considered ECS money. That money comes directly to the Board of Education. I'll explain a little bit more about one of the advantages of being an alliance district when we get to a slide in a couple of minutes. But so we're going to receive, we do anticipate receiving an increase from the state. We also have added this year many new jobs, mostly in the teaching ranks, to support kids. Those include literacy aides, literacy teachers, math teachers, additional EL staff. We have created an outreach team. We've increased our security, almost doubling our security in our school buildings. And I'm trying to think any other positions that we've added. We have a district literacy trainer that goes around to all the schools and works with all of our reading specialists. We've also added librarians. We have a librarian now and media specialists in every one of our schools. No, it's our person. She was a reading specialist over at Forest with. And we actually sent her for the training, 2 or 3 years back, anticipating. But she does a great job. She does a really good job. Oh, sure. So again, with the new positions we've added, and again, the drawback to using the funds that we don't know we're going to have beyond, I think it's the end of the 2025 school year, is that we are going to have to look carefully and through attrition, maybe lose some of those jobs. Keep in mind, the jobs that were created as a result of ESSER funding, COVID relief funds, were there to transition kids back to school. So I'm assuming the assumption is that once they're transitioned back, we may no longer need them. Frankly, I don't see the need going down. And let's not kid each other. I mean, we're all reading the papers. Kids have a lot of needs. We're doing the best we can. I think we're making good progress, but it's very difficult once you come to rely on the services to cut those services back. And again, this is a district. This is an urban school district with a high need population. So we we believe that while we're requesting, and again, that's the key, what we're requesting tonight, the budget you'll be asked to pass tonight or down the road, is the 89 million we need to operate the school district, an additional almost $4 million. And, I'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe Matt will jump in, I don't know. So I mentioned on the next slide, the additional alliance grant, the addition of the alliance grant. And we are planning on using the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding to again supplement our budget. Many of those, the reason the raise goes up is because there are a lot of new jobs. That's where the $2.4 million comes. The additional positions. Now, again, keep in mind, if you look at the next page, the additional funding sources. We like this because we like to present this to you when we do the budget, because while the city flat funds us, again, we do receive other funding sources, so we don't want to hide the fact that we're getting additional money. You can see the Alliance grant, the increase for next year is at 1.3 million. The CARES Act and the relief fund, we did not put a number in the right column because we have, again, you see on the bottom until September 30th, 2023 to commit the money, which we could use them for salaries that year, spend them for the remainder of the year. And then ESSER 3 funding will be available until September 30th, 2024. Marissa and I, who are working closely with a retired superintendent who's a state consultant by the name of Mike Wasta, we've been kind of wondering why our grant hasn't been approved yet. None of them have, and that's the $19 million, so it's a really nice chunk of change. That's going to help us do a lot of things in addition to salaries. But the reason the state is holding them up is because of the spike in the COVID cases, the Omicron virus. They are saying that priorities may have changed. But we don't know what that means. We don't know if that means they're going to take some of the money away from us and give us more kids and things like that. If they're going to want us to adjust our application so that we can take into consideration anything that we may have had to spend additionally, and I don't think there has been, because of the spike, maybe substitute teachers or something like that they're thinking. But so I don't know what that means, but we are going to be talking more with Mike so we can have input into the grant and hopefully getting it approved. We have anticipated it being approved by now. IDEA is a special ed grant. We have special ed preschool grant as well. There are Title I funds. 4 of our schools are designated Title I: Forest Elementary School, Savin Rock Elementary School, Washington, Carrigan. So there are additional resources and teachers there. Most of the money we spend through those grants are for teacher salary that give additional aid and support to students who need the extra help. Title II, I believe, and again, these guys can correct me on that, that's for professional development, teacher recruitment and retainment. And Title III is the EL grant for supplemental programs for the EL. So those are additional funds we have. You don't see anything, again, in the ESSER, you have the stars because we don't know, because we've got the money, we'll have to allocate it once it's been approved. And then for the other grants, we don't have an amount yet that we receive as to what we will have. However, you can see that for most of them, there's been a decent size increase. But that's in addition to the money that you're requesting from the city. This money comes directly to the board. I just want to make that clear. So that's not part of the money that will be $89 million. Now, I try to say this, I try not to say it sarcastically, but from the perspective of technology and a lot of things, COVID wasn't all that bad. We received computers for kids. We put the Promethean, if you guys have been to the schools, you've seen the Promethean boards at all of the classrooms, which the teachers love. The kids like working with them too. We've been able to do a lot of professional development, data-driven decisions. And what else are we doing with professional development? Some of the things. Okay. Good. I need a break.
Okay, so basically, I'm not going to read to you everything on the frame, but if you go through it, we did give you a little handout like this to just get an idea. This is just some of the highlights of some of the things that we've done this year. We've done a lot of programs, which I know Marissa had passed out the last meeting, kind of a little summary of some of the things that we have done. We've done summer programs, we did programs in the fall, we're continuing to do programs from K on up through 12. With the professional development we've done is not only for the teachers, new teachers, the administrators, we did professional development for them, just to kind of get things back in place. Our data teams are up and running again. We have professional development on that. We have ACEs coming in to help. We have the outreach, which has been very helpful, which is part of this funding in all the buildings. We know that some of the subject areas suffered more than others. So again, we had a lot of support staff, coaches, reading consultants, not reading consultants, but reading people, literacy people. We had coaches, EL staff, tutors helping out because that population increased incredibly. And then of course, curriculum work. During the summer, we had to tweak some of our curriculum. It's ongoing with our curriculum, especially with the needs of the children. We're constantly talking about what they need, what we need to do to meet their needs. So we've been doing a lot of adjustments on that. And also hands-on materials. I know math suffered because when you're doing remote, it's a little bit easier with language arts to sit with a book and do different things. It's a lot harder when you need concrete things in math. So we put a lot of resources and manipulatives into the math area. Social emotional is huge. We did workshops on that. We continue to do workshops on that. Working on collaborating with the teachers. I know that I've been very lucky. I have a great team here that constantly goes into the buildings, meets with the principals, meets with the departments, and goes over the different things that we need support in. So we're constantly touching with each of the buildings and trying to see what their needs are and keep in touch with them. So this is just a little summary of what we have. I can have each one of them come up and just say some of the highlights for you. If you have questions, I know there's a lot in here, but a lot that we didn't list, you know, you can be in touch with them. But maybe we can start off with language arts if you want to come up for a minute.
Okay, so I'm the last one in the packet. Anyway, that's okay. This goes a very boring 3 pages at the end, which says, but it starts with literacy. And just sort of highlights to give you the things that we've done that have been kind of outstanding in a way this year. Which includes we started off the year by giving kids summer reading books. And that's actually based on research that says more books kids have immediately in hand, the better they're going to retain information, the better they're going to be able to access information and develop public reading. So we make sure that happens. As Julie explained, we did some curriculum work that tweaked because some of our students, last time they were in a classroom was a year and a half ago. So therefore, we had to kind of loop back. But tools for teachers and professional books that we thought were very effective. We have a lot of lesson plans very quick and easy to incorporate. We have new software and some of the older software that are more successful there. And we're using some of those platforms to drive instruction. We have also purchased some new literacy programs for remediation. And we have programs up at the high school now for kids who have difficulty reading. Maybe reading at the beginning double and then attend their classroom and literacy countries. They value materials, both hard copy and digital. We have also purchased some kits for using in our daily five or consultants, very quick little kits people can use to address specific needs because kids have gaps. So we may have something that's in the classroom. We may need it, so we have to have it. We've spoken about the new reading staff. We have a number of the freshman teachers who have reading degrees, they literacy specialists. And I also spoke very quickly about the district literacy person who is now helping us to address the needs of public academic like the impact concerning reading and dyslexia. It's called the Science of Reading Act. And then Neil spoke very quickly about the librarians, which is a huge benefit because a school is a good library. It's the heart of the school. We have full-time librarians in 4 out of 6 schools, and a promise of making really good wonderful. So thank you. Everything looks good on the list, and it's not only just ELA, because it also spills over to all the other things. You read it every day.
And before the next person comes up, thank you for that. But again, keep in mind that a lot of this was as a result of the COVID funds that we received, or when we had to, within a very short period of time, close the schools down, go remote, and start looking into purchasing computers. And then again, being Alliance, we were able to receive a good number of the computers. So it kind of forced us to get better, and that's a good thing. But these are all things that now. Most of what we're highlighting isn't paid for within this budget. We have a technology account, we have a curriculum account, but we really have been able to advance ourselves with a lot of the money, and I think put to very good use. If anybody else wants to. At the end, or
A lot of additional staffing to support us. Okay, so I wanted to every couple of weeks. Every couple of weeks, I think we all do update on numbers. And this is just a homage to this year. You can see it on the packet of the students. Just in 1 year, and it takes 9 to 1,022 as a general. And I feel like it's too much today. So every day we're going to get students and text. Support assistant, she's very working on increasing staff and training staff, plus refugees and there's compassion. Hire person I come together to make workers. We advanced the high school program. We went actually 70 people. So I was out program. Some of the schools we have
if I can interrupt for a second too, I think one of the things that Rafaela and Mara have been very creative with is finding people who can help service the kids. I mean, it's not easy. First of all, people who are bilingual in general are in very high demand, but they do their best to keep getting people, and most of the time they say, Neil, I found this person, hire them, you know what I mean? Because we don't want to lose somebody down the road. And again, the numbers, as you can see, are constantly going up, and we do need to provide that service to our students. These guys do a good job too. When you see the test results at the end of the year.
Do we have a staff member that represents all 42 of those languages spoken? Is there any opportunity to share across districts of folks that may speak those languages?
We do have, a lot of times it's hard to, because I work with data lab, and that's part of the high school, actually see languages. But a lot of times we bring in, it's very hard to student or somebody who's not in the district, transfer something they aren't student. Those kinds of things. So we do have language points.
That was my next question. If you
We
would
do
like,
have language points that helps, but a lot of it is, the main languages, we have a lot of languages. We have two that we share. Multiple languages, Portuguese, and other languages. Just saying this quickly, we have also your language, we have people start your language because there's a science, and excited, we're back to away from the computer, we're back to performance tasks. So into that.
I just have to say, I don't know how you do that. Is a lot. So kudos to you and your team.
Well, let me give you, the funny story was, at my first meeting as superintendent, we didn't have a science coordinator position. And we appointed Raffaella because we thought that, you really had to have somebody who was dedicated to science. And then because she was born in Italy, the former superintendent says, hey, could you kind of oversee the EL program? And, they are, right, they are two full-time jobs, I can tell you that, in this district. And we have come a long way, staff-wise. We probably have doubled it maybe in the last day.
When I first spoke with the I have great speakers.
So, yeah, they do it, and all the coordinators do a really, really good job along with the rest of the engineering team. So those are some examples of how we've been able to use the money. And yeah, I thought it was really important that even though much of it is not part of the actual request you're making to the city, to show that, when the money becomes available, that's really our discretionary funding, and how we can get the things that the kids need, the computers, the reading boards, the additional paving that we do outside school areas to create outside class spaces. If you haven't been to Forest, go to Forest School and see what we did up there. It's really nice. We're doing some similar things in some of the other schools, but the weather got cold, so we had to stop. So you can see the next page, the funding allocations. Just there's not a lot of, as I just mentioned, a lot of discretionary. Most of it is tied into salary and benefits. That's what drives any budget, especially the municipal budget, and that's where the increase is. Now, we'll take each one of those sections separately and kind of go through them quickly just to give you, educate you on what they are and, you know, where the money goes and how it's spent. As I said, you can see the line items that drive the increases are salaries and benefits. Now that 8% benefit number is not a made up or fictitious number. That's a number that we get from our third party administrator working with Anthem. It's a placeholder now. It usually doesn't go up 8%, but that's the number that's recommended in the recommended budget. The city normally uses the same figures because we have the same agent. That's where if we had to make some adjustments at the end, we have a little bit of play there. Also too, I want you to keep in mind when we do our salaries, what we do when we do a recommended budget, unless we know of a retirement, we assume that everybody at the same salary is coming back. However, as we get retirements, and I'm going to use rough numbers now, if a top step teacher retires at $80,000 a year, we bring in a new teacher for $40,000 a year. However, there's some payouts to the retiring staff member. You save about $20,000 as a staff member with the retirement. But that's something that we will adjust down the road. Unfortunately, there is no clause in the contract or incentive that we can provide to get, at this time anyway, to get people to notify us early. It would help us with the planning, obviously, for next year in addition to the finances. But we don't have that now. But we usually have a rough idea, and we kind of, you know, put the feelers out as to who we think is going and whatnot. You know, we'll be monitoring that closely. I will say this, and this is a commercial, and I've had a conversation with Bridget and Debbie. You know, we are not up for teacher negotiations for the next year. And by the way, you negotiate them a year in advance, so we won't start for a year from now. But just a point of information, our teachers are amongst the lowest starting in the area. That's something that needs to be addressed. You're not going to address that with any kind of grant money. That's something that we're going to need a commitment from the city in order to move forward with. We have to shortly start those discussions and say, look, where do we want to be? You know, we need to be competitive. It's nice to provide support and professional development, but when you're 23 years old and maybe you're going to get married, if somebody offers you $5,000 or $10,000 more a year, that's where you're going. You know, we like to think too that we get student teachers and interns, and when they come here, they like being here. There's a good chance we can keep them. But again, money talks. So that's something, and again, I would have been remiss if I didn't say that as part of this presentation tonight. That is something that this board, and you can't do it by yourself because you can ask for the money. We're going to need a strong commitment prior to going into any negotiation with the teachers.
You saved me from my speech later.
Okay.
And we.
No, well, listen, I know, and I mean, this, Debbie and Bridget are very passionate about that. They really are all about, you know, making sure West Haven has good teachers and not only hiring them, but retaining them.
I think we need to be especially proactive in this climate right now of employment versus unemployment, and, you know, being able to work remotely in a lot more places than you used to be able to, and we need to make sure that we are being competitive or become competitive, not only at the bottom of the start, but at the top as well.
Couldn't agree with you more. And again, I've been preaching that for a long, as you know, Kev, I think I probably proved you on that when you came to the board many years ago. I say it a lot. I say it, and I'll say it if I have to go to the city council. You know, I say it every year. And again, you just can't rely. You can't rely on some of the. I think the Alliance grant, yeah, we probably can, but I don't think we're going to see this kind of money once it runs out for years to come. I think there'll be something, because I don't think we'll ever let cities like West Haven and East Hartford and Meriden, all of which were the same educational reference groups. They're never going to let us drown, and they're all distressed municipalities. But you know, the city's got to do its share too. And again,
I think it's really important that, you know, Bridget has been coming and we've been having conversations of council and Hoskia, say Bridget.
I know. For those of you that,
Councilwoman is the chair of the finance committee for the.
she's just Bridget Doss.
Right, and, I think it's really important that the steps that the city has been taking to get on more secure financial footing will help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. Once our debt payments have been reduced or eliminated, I think we'll have a lot more, legs to stand on with being able to transition some of that money.
The next page is a really important one that you should know, for those of you who aren't familiar with the educational cost sharing grant.
My other so.
Yep. Well, the good news is that the lines are getting closer with the city share and the state share. This is money that goes to the city, the educational cost share, and then has to be allocated over to the Board of Ed. Now, you're never quite sure if you get it all. The good news is, because we're an alliance grant, I said I would mention this, is that right now, there are certain formulas, because they changed some laws that you can, based on pupil expenditure and things like that. You can, if your enrollment goes down, you can decrease the city share. But because we're an alliance district, right now, part of the law is you cannot get less than you got the year before. So we know we're getting the 45 million roughly. We know we're getting the additional 1.3 that comes directly in the form of the alliance grant. But again, that's not something that, you know, and I understand where West Haven is better than everybody else. I think, you know, I'm the right superintendent because I know the city's finances. I grew up here. I understand the dilemmas and the decisions that the people on the city side have to make. But it would really be nice to get some kind of incremental increase every year, so you're not chasing your tail. And all of a sudden, one year you're not, you know, we're not going to the city, or I'm not coming to you presenting the budget saying, if I don't get this amount of money, I think I'm going to have to lay off this many people or cut these services. So that's something where we really need to work closely with the city on it. Really urge them to kind of make, you know, small gains every year. They're not going to add $5 million to the budget, but they add $500,000 every year. Yeah, I think that would be unreasonable, and that would keep you more on a level par and keep your local share with the research fund. You know, again, in West Haven, because of the type of municipality we are, you get a really good value for your education. You know, you can say it in rough terms, you get a $90 million education for $45 million for the local taxpayer. You know, because that money comes directly to the city, that comes over to the board. But I do think it needs to be increased. We have made strides, as you can see on the next page of the graph, where the city share is. So I'm going to take you quickly now through the major categories of the budget. We already said that one of the 7 major categories. Salaries will increase over the current line item. You know that. They increase because of contractual obligations that the board has, the board commits to. Approve all the contracts. Next year, you can see on the next page what the increases are. We have AFSCME negotiations, which should begin shortly. AFSCME are our clerical staff, our maintenance staff, and our food service staff at the middle school and the high school. There's roughly 110 members of AFSCME. And they, again, it's tradesmen, maintenance people, and custodians make up the bulk of it, but they also put to clerical unit or food service. So those are the total increases there. If you look, special education tuition, we are anticipating a budget increase of about $240,000. For those of you that don't know, special education tuition, we send kids who cannot. Karen's coming up. I'll try not to steal your thunder, but that a lot of private schools we send them to, in addition to places like ACES, and you know, they're for-profit facilities, And based on, PPT, planning and placement team meeting with parents and our staff, and sometimes even the outside people, we decide that we need to place a child out.
And you can look at our number, our special ed patient number is actually going down. But I think, coming off the 2.5-year pandemic, number one, our needs are changed. I think in some ways they're greater. School services, of course, are in the programs, and the district marketing in district. We're covered the unit of instructional programs, additional staffing. We're really lucky to have this year. We have 4 new full-time ECBAs and registered behavioral techs in our classrooms and our schools to support our students. We also have implemented a number of professional development. This gave us a series on social emotional learning. It's ongoing throughout the year, but it's really designed to embed those social emotional learning activities in the classroom for all of our staff. They've done a number of de-escalation strategies for us, positive classrooms. We hope we build a good base for learning for our students, especially our early childhood students. The last 2 years, 2.5 years, I've had a lot of exposure to school at all. We developed a classroom in front, which is designed for our getting our early childhood students that are diagnosed with autism. They receive direct social skills support, they receive regulation instruction. The goal for that classroom is to provide those we've also collaborated with Bridges. We have the school-based health clinic here in our main school. It's very successful. And now we're extending it to there and they have to support those health and school needs too. We know after 2.5 years, our students are going to think, they know isolation. They have a lot of feelings. And in adolescents, they don't know how to manage. And we want to make sure they have those services provided readily available. And sometimes it's very difficult for our working parents to get them to the treatment afterward or take them. We have the advantage now with students don't see the services. We have a step program at Bailey, which is really focusing on our eighth grade students that are we're going to support and pair them in addition to high school. This classroom is designed led by a special ed teacher. It's designed to support those students that really we call struggling as they integrate back to the classroom. That really starts with the ability in that. So it's provides a therapy session for our social worker and we also incorporate our advocacy. It's going to be opening up soon, but a lot of the classrooms open up. So we're excited to offer that.
I also think it's important to note on the second page, where we describe what special education is. When we talk about the tuition and transporting kids out of the district, that's its own separate account. But within our overall budget, special ed actually accounts for about 27% of the budget. That's anything from a social worker that works in the schoolroom to an inclusion teacher who provides support to kids, speech therapy, psychologists, social workers. That's all built into the budget now as part of our teacher line items. But the tuition is a separate animal that we monitor very closely. Many times, just again, for those of you that are new, we have no say into where the kids are going. We're given a bill, and let me give you an example. If we get notice that a kid's been incarcerated, we have to pick up the tuition for that. If the family of the student is placed out in a facility and wherever, moves from Meriden to West Haven, don't worry, Meriden will notify us quickly and we start paying the bills. And it works both ways because it's a volatile line item, special ed tuition. It's an area that, we have to watch carefully. We do receive excess, it's another ECS, excess cost sharing. That's when the average tuition goes over $50,000. We get money back from the state, reimbursement from the state to help offset those tuitions. But again, it's something that.
Maybe you want to bring up tuition costs when you're calculating not only the initial costs, but
Have you asked us a question? Do you want to do that basement paper?
I don't
I
mind.
think like at the end of like that portion, I think it's.
I think it would be appropriate to ask.
Because I don't think it's, at least I would be able to remember
Yeah.
my question all the way to the very end. So thank you for asking.
Can I actually just want to ask a question? So, thank you for all that. First of all, I know it's a huge stress for parents. Special ed students, that's so unique. I was just curious because the number of students that are receiving services, but the tuition is going up, I know you said it's really volatile. So are we predicting that there's going to be an increase of $250,000 in needs of tuition? Because this is just tuition, you know, transportation is going up quite a bit, but the $250,000 approximately.
They're private facilities and to sustain themselves, like everything else is going on, they raise the tuition with most of the time very little notice, and there's not a lot of negotiating. The times there may be would be like if several kids were being placed in the same facility, for example, they might give us a slight discount.
So you guys are seeing tuition rates? Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, in terms of, special person, but for those related.
And also we do, one thing that's unique, it's not the big bus contract, but based on where the kids are placed, every year we put those bus routes out for bid. So sometimes we do pretty well, sometimes we don't. We do have a consortium with ACES where we trade with other districts.
Statement. So, that's something that requires ambulatory services, but if there's medical needs, so that with them, that can go to the cost of $400 a day.
They're pretty far, and so
Some of them are humble, we have some that are kind of American, but that's not perfect. We try to keep our students as close as possible, but depending on what their needs are, they're just going to go down. Country, so it's not so far. So we certainly want to design that. But there are students that can travel.
I was just breaking down the number. It ends up being only about 2,100 per student if you were looking at this tuition increase. When you break down that number of 250,000 increase per tuition, really not that much.
What's interesting, and there's that family of the twins that I won't mention their name obviously, but from the time they came to the school district, to when they were graduating, they were about well over $100,000 each a year. So they turned 21 or 22 now. They come off the rolls. That makes a big difference. Right, exactly. That's why it's so powerful.
Is the state still penalized if we have community outbreaks?
I mean, I think for now, I think we can put a number of places around the state that we had actually decreased because we are trying to do what they are health programs as best we can. So we require that special. Have been.
The program is that for our whole system or just
That's the whole system.
Of the 100 students, would any of those students benefit from having special staff in the classrooms, perhaps incentivizing some of our professionals to become our themselves and have this time to lab? Would those students be successful if we had that to offer, or is there need so great that
I think it is going to be transition is something that is very difficult. So once they're comfortable in the program and use the data themselves, have another student that can bring creative back to the district. But certainly talk to the parents and the about this is being program.
just put my whole paraprofessional hat on? We did the paraprofessional emergency training when we were out.
The online training.
We did online training.
Another portion of it that is
could do it. If we could incentivize some of our parents, not only would it potentially be lifting them in terms of their career, but we could provide additional support to the students that we have.
Look, that'd be great. That's a really good point. Let me say this too. What's very different, I found historically, from the time I was a building principal, you spend a lot of time convincing a parent that, hey, I don't know that we can educate your child here. We have to put them in an outside setting. It's really difficult to convince them once they're doing well in an outside placement to say, guess what? I've just created a new program and I'm fairly confident I can meet your child's needs. It's a difficult sell to any parent of a kid with special needs, who's especially now seeing success in the outside placement. They look at it, they may look at it as, I don't want my child being a guinea pig. What if the program doesn't work? So, it's easier said than done, but yes, I think we've done an okay job, pretty good job. I mentioned briefly the excess cost share grant. That's what we received back. There's no way to predict now what we'll get back for next year, so that's what we put it up. What we think we're going to get back next year, but you can see it's been pretty constant. I was guessing the 2.4 million is about what we will get back based on what our outside tuitions are. Transportation, a big part of the budget, as you know. Next year's the 5th year of the contract, the 5-year contract. There's no increase. And as I mentioned, the special ed transportation, we put out to bid annually. There always seems to be an increase. So we anticipate a 2% increase with special ed transportation.
2%, that $770,346. That's increase. So the transportation budget item increases from the actual $777,000. Is that what 2%?
I'm sorry. You say it one more time, and I'm gonna that may be one for Matt if he can hear you.
Unless I'm reading it wrong.
That's why I do that on this.
So the 2022-23 budget is the 5.3 million.
Okay.
Actual from 2021 creates an increase in the budget of actual $777,300. No increase in the vehicle of that contract, but it should be. I just wanted to clarify that.
Matt, could you explain that? Are you there?
Could you hear me? I think for you guys to hear me, they have to mute the meeting. So if you can hear me, could I have like a thumbs up from? All right. What's the question? So I can't hear. The only person I can hear is really Neil, because he's using the microphones. Could the question be repeated?
Even though we're saying there's no increase in the contract with Waco, that there's been an increase, 753,000 for not next year, from last year to this year. Is that correct?
So the only line items that is increasing in the transportation budget is B12 for the special education kids, which is going up to 2%. I think if you're referring to the spreadsheet, the funding sources with the all different funding sources, yeah, the 2% remains consistent in just that line item. I'm not sure where the the other increases coming from, or where you're seeing it.
I think it's important to note, though, maybe that Winkle isn't our only provider for special education transportation. Perhaps that answers the question.
Hello?
Benefits and folder right now. And then there are, benefits and fixed charges also include the other line items that are mentioned. I believe those have remained flat funded. The operation of plants, again, most of those are contractual. And purchase services is probably a better name for that. Those are contracted services. Those include our technology contract with Business Network Group, who does our IT, our law firm, who there's no contract, but they are paid billable hours. Our contract with Xerox, which should be going out to bid this year. And we also have to subsidize the Fitzgerald Sports Complex, which is a football field and baseball field. And I know I often get this question when I go to the council. Is it possible to run the Fitzgerald complex so that we don't have to subsidize it, or can it self-sustain? The answer is no. We just don't have enough events that go to outside agencies that's used mostly by our kids. And it's not like the ring where we're the only game in town. There are other, every high school has a field. What's that?
Only investment.
So, those are purchase service. We thought it was important, again, and I know these guys did a good job to talk about what our instructional supports, what kind of supports we're offering, and what we've been able to do over the last couple of years. I really think we've made really good strides. As I said, I really believe that we've put our money to good use and tried to make sure that what we didn't have and kids needed, we were able to deliver to them in the area of services and technology. For those of you that know me, I really don't believe that our kids should get anything less than the best, whether it's a high school building or a computer or a laptop. We really want our nice place to play, like a tennis court. I'm really big on that. Our kids should have the best to prepare themselves for it.
I'm gonna put a plug in here too for you because, you hear all the time that all the money that teachers are spending out of pocket in their classrooms. And for every teacher that I have seen post that or email me something or has mentioned in passing that they were looking for something for their classroom, and I have gone to Neil and said, hey, so-and-so needs a stand for her iPad, so she doesn't have to borrow one, or needs a flip chart. One of them was an easel, they wanted a flip chart easel. The answer has always been, please make sure they know to go to their building administrator and ask for those things, because sometimes we have those already. We have those flip charts and we're able to provide them. So I just want to make sure that all of your staff knows that sometimes the answer might be no, but please ask before spending out of your pocket, because we would love to be able to provide you what you need for your class.
Here's what I can tell you. Teachers take money out of their pockets. They just do it. They see it at the store, they buy it. But really, I mean, they're so afraid to ask for I need crayons because I'm doing a big art project or whatever it is, all you got to do is ask. I mean, those are things that we have built into the budget. We have supplies, a lot of times we have them available. We don't even have to go out and buy them, but they're little things. But, again, that's just the nature.
Especially now, ask now. So it's like, open season, we have some discretionary.
Let's not go too crazy.
Listen, you get 100%, you get 100% of what you don't ask for. So if the answer might be no, and you have to buy it anyway, but at least ask. So, you know, we've had a lot of success, and I appreciate you always saying, I'll get to
We
it.
really try to meet the needs of, you know, again, whether it's for the classroom, for our athletic coaches, you know, we're not gonna send our kids anywhere and not let them have what everybody else has. That's good. With that said, if you guys have any other questions, and again, if we don't have the answers, you need more information, Tammy will take the notes, we'll get it out to you as soon as possible. You know, we're requesting from the city a flat budget. I hope you now have a better understanding of what some of our other resources are and how we're going to fund this budget next year in this Board of Education to make it work. We've started a lot of good things, and I think we're going to be able to, at least for the next couple of years, be able to continue. No, we had 4 out of 6. We have 6. We added 2 more to give every school one now. No, I thought we added the ones at the elementary school. We added the 2. Oh, okay, but we added 2. We added 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I just wanted to say. The numbers aren't still at different levels.
Pat, a lot of it, the person, the go-to person for that is AJ Palermo. She does the itinerant schedule. A lot of it is based on the number of learning labs in a school because they get more prep period times than. So it's the number of preps that each school is required to get. That is how we assign music, art, phys ed, and library, and science. I'm sorry about that, Colette. You're right. I know we added. I did know we added.
Any other questions? I've got a couple more questions. So, this is my first meeting for a budget, and I know it's a lot of work, and you guys have put a lot of time and energy.
Listen, that we want to make sure that, you know, again, my feeling is we want to educate you guys as best you can so you become our advocates. Hopefully.
So when you are under budget, it might be your budget, let's use the transportation budget, just for an example. So you are under budget, $746,000. That's fantastic, even though COVID. Now, this year, you're asking for a small increase, that 2% increase for the special education. Where does that money go that was not?
Most of the time, what we do when we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year is any money that we believe we're going to have, we have to, first of all, we have to spend all of our money by the end of the fiscal year, or the money by law goes back to the city. What we try to do is encumber the money, and we'll usually spend it on technology, extra computers, or anything we can do to enhance instruction. Because, and not that we don't want to give it back to the city, but, you know, if we don't have to, we won't. It used to be, it's actually going to be a lot easier now because we're on the medical plan we're on now, the state partnership plan, is a fixed amount that we pay every month. It's a really good plan. And so we, in the past, we were self-insured. So we would pay the medical bills sometimes into September from the previous year. It would be difficult to kind of gauge as to how we would finish out the year. But that should be a much easier process now that we're finishing. I think it's our first year on the second year of the state partnership plan for health benefits.
Especially those years we came up a little short on those.
Yeah, no, listen, it comes from somewhere.
One catastrophic illness.
It comes from somewhere. Being self-insured is nice, you know, because, you know, you run the risk of a very good year, but you have that one bad year, or like you say, a couple of cancers or things like that, and your benefit account can really go over. But we do try to gauge, and then we'll make a report to the board, and we'll say, look, we're buying the entire fifth grade computers or something like that.
Any other questions?
Well, we have given money back to the city too. I mean, I do want to say, we're not averse to that, but
So, sorry. Literally, open questions.
You can go first and Bob.
So we were talking about, when you were talking about salaries, so that, you know, a big portion of our increases are salary increases. And I kind of broke down all of the increases and decreases, so I'm sure that's very common for that to happen, something. And it seemed, when I was looking at it, and again, this could have been due to COVID, because I was looking at actual 2021 expenditures on the sheet versus what we're asking for the budget for this year. So the decreases were for assistant principals, teachers, special education teachers, special area teachers, pupil services, clerical secondary schools, clerical elementary schools, teacher aides, nurses, custodians, and maintenance. And all of those total decreases, again, from what we're asking for this year, and COVID is 1.4 million. But the increased salaries are only 763,000, and that's for superintendent, assistant superintendent, clerical at the central office, principals, directors, and coordinators, and non-public nurses. The non-public nurse, I thought that was great for the increase because there's 2 people in that role, and it's only a $2,000 increase.
yeah, it's only 2 people. It's one would be serves as St. Lawrence, one would serve as Notre Dame.
Yeah, totally makes sense that they would be an increase for nurses this year. I'm guessing we lost a nurse because 71,000 for a decrease in nurse's salary. That's the public nurse.
They're really difficult to. We've had a heck of a time replacing them when they leave.
You're not the only one.
So I just, you know, as I was looking at it, and again, I'm not an accountant, I'm just looking at the numbers. It seems like, I just was curious why the decreases on some of the line items.
So you're
Why
looking.
the increases, especially for the clerical, and I'll tell you which one that is. So the clerical is line item. C07, because that was one of the larger increases, and it seemed like there's only 18 people in that role. So if that was an average of $22,000 per person, which would be doubling their salary, and maybe they needed the salary double, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with the increase.
Yeah, no one's salary is done. That, I think you can hear me. Jennifer is looking at C7, clerical at central office. The actual number for 2021 was $516,000. For next year, we're budgeting $928,000. I have to question that one myself. That's almost a double. What's the rationale or reason for that?
Sure. So when we switched to ADP for our new payroll service, we really looked at the accounts that individuals are being charged to. So we right-setted a lot of the charging accounts for individuals. But if you add up the C07 for central office, C28 for secondary schools, and C30 for elementary schools, you'll see how central office goes up, but the other schools go down. So it was just a coding in our system to make it right to charge the individuals to the right account. We also had a couple secretaries move to central office that focus on data. So there was an increase in number of staff that will be charged to that account as well. I think Ms. Frost, you also touched on some other line items going down. like the teachers C16. With our budget staying flat and us having more funding sources or grants to utilize to be able to keep everybody employed and maintain our services, not everyone is eligible to be paid on the Alliance grant or the COVID relief grants. So it's very cut and dry on who you could use for those grants, and a majority of that is classroom teachers, other types of teachers, other support staff. So while those line items are going up in our yearly spend for our actual local budget, they have to decrease just to make the overall number of 89.9 work. No. Yes, that's correct. And that's why even though there is a significant raise in the teachers union, it doesn't look so in our budget, because they're being moved to properly spend the funds that we have.
Explanation that you gave for the clerical, still a difference of $204,000, which is essentially, you did say you hired one more person, maybe, but that would be an average of 11.3 thousand over 18 people. Well, the total difference is still 204,000. If you take the decrease that was on the clerical staff from C28 and C30, those are the only two other clerical lines, and those did decrease, but the overall increase is still 204,000.
Well, that also, so that those line items are also increasing because we did put some funds aside for the AFSCME unions for negotiations. So they will be, we're assuming that after the bargaining negotiations are done, that they will receive a raise and some step movement, since that union hasn't received that in quite some time. So there are funds set aside to pay for those raises.
There's actually another discrepancy that trying to figure out what best way to ask this. There's a total overall decrease in salaries of $657,884. The decrease on the chart from the actual to this year what we're asking for budget is $183,550. There's just a discrepancy in the number for overall total budget.
Again, I'm guessing that salaries were taken off the local budget and moved to other funds, but specifically, I don't know that. I don't know if I'm addressing that correctly either.
Neil, could you repeat the question?
There's an overall discrepancy on the salary budget. So in the presentation, saying here, we're increasing salaries. And if you, sorry, it's a lot of numbers. There's a discrepancy between the 2022-23 total budget.
You're saying there's a discrepancy in the total
of 189.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. From the increased salaries of the ones that I listed out and the decreased ones that I listed out, so the decreased total that I came up with, that these ones have been now shifted to maybe alliance grants or whatever. And then the increased salary, there's a difference of $657,884 decrease in salaries being asked for actually. Being shown on here, it doesn't show that.
No, because those are not part of, remember, this is part of the local budget that you request. That's, those grant salaries aren't part of this. I think,
Well, and I mean, part of the reason I bring that up is because you had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, like, there is this unknown, right? We don't know in the future how
Sure.
this money is going to happen. You know, we shifted positions, we shifted money to keep this, 89 million the same for the local budget. Just right, I appreciate it, keeping it the same for the local budget, but I'm just thinking long term, and I
agree with you.
Too. That's a big shift, $650,000 of salary going to what you're telling me, grant money.
I think that was the point that we were trying to make earlier about the fact that the city needs to think about the long-term pickup of their share of these positions once if it happens at this grant.
but again, think about the intent too. The intent was to transition kids back to school. So in theory, and I think I mentioned this earlier, kids are going to come back, they're going to be well adjusted, they're not going to need the supports, we're not going to need the jobs. That's not the reality. So you know what, maybe what would be helpful is a breakdown of some of the other funding sources and what the positions and or salaries are. Get that to the board.
Sure, not a problem. I think if you look at the Excel spreadsheet that went home, if you have it in front of you, the title is the West End Board of Education FY23 funding sources. If you go to, I believe it's the second page, total salaries, you could see how, the 51.4 million that we're budgeting in the local budget. And then in the Alliance grant, there's just under 2.1, ESSER 2, there's 2.9, ESSER 3, there's 4 million. That is how we're shifting the funds throughout these grants. So, I could definitely break it down further into actual positions, but this is a good spreadsheet that shows how we're using all of our funding sources.
Well, let me give you a really good example, and I was sharing this with Kevin before. We've increased our security budget, partially because of COVID, because you just don't want extra people in the buildings. Probably the last year and a half it's over $1 million now, but we almost doubled it in the last couple of years. Some of those positions are probably going to go away. I mean, I would think, while we don't want to decrease security, the intent is, let's be extra careful about who we're letting in the buildings now, because, whether it's a parent or whatever else. But we think maybe the elementary schools could go back to one down the road. So there are some choices we're going to make, or you're going to make like that. We'll make the recommendations. The theory is, like our outreach team, it's all being paid for by grant money. It's a really diverse, good group of, men and women of color, Hispanic, bilingual, that are going out into the homes, that are making phone calls to people. That's all grant money. I would hate to lose anybody, but that's something that, again, the purpose of that was to get these kids back to school. Again, I don't think we're going to want to lose it. I don't think this district can afford to lose it. But again, when you're forced to make that decision, you're going to ask yourself the question, what was the intent of the money? We no longer have the money, therefore we may have to eliminate. And that, hopefully not the whole thing, Kim, you know, again, the needs aren't going away. I mean, but again, why were they created? You know? No, I hope that either may be retired, so. Good luck.
Really, one question situated on the budget. We need to add to our substitute daily rate as a second part question. How is the governor's exemption of retired teachers helping us?
It hasn't helped us yet. I hope it will because, you know, again, the things that happen throughout the year, it's nice to have just a couple of extra, even building substitutes or certified retired teachers in the buildings. You know, Judy, right now, how many people do we have going out on, you know, in the coming weeks, long-term maternity leave? So, I mean, we've got to be able to man those classes probably for the rest of the year because it's 12 weeks family medical leave, but then they may, you know, try to get to the end of the school year. So I'm hoping it's going to. However, here's the one thing that I've heard. I've actually talked to Kristen Scanlon, the teachers union president. Her concern is because, you know, Kristen's been around for a while. Kristen, do you know of anybody? If you want to recruit, if you have anybody who you think might be interested in coming back? A lot of the retired people don't want to be in the schools now with the high positivity rate. So right now it's an issue, but I think it will help us down the road.
My other comments follow exactly what we were talking about before. But this budget further increases the financial gap that is $3.8 million. This continues to create a greater hole. The city will need to make up other revenue sources go away. This will be the 5th quarter budget in a row. The city has contributed no increase in the local dollars. Matter of fact, the city commitment has increased since 2017, 2018 by $250,000. It does not sound like a city that values education or good financial practices. And I think we all agree we have to address increased salaries. Start off with
No question.
I would ask that based on previous years, the city relying on other funding sources, the total gap in dollars created last year is about 7.5.
You're talking, yeah. Well,
In the last 5 years, the total gap, we're looking at 3.8 million.
yes, right. And the way we've been able to do most of that is through the increases in the Alliance grant, which is about that amount. Yes.
I think that, I think the staff has done a tremendous job working there. But we're at a point that we really got to stop relying on the outside funding. We have ourselves so far in a hole. We're never going to get out. We want to get ahead and teach our salaries.
Yeah, I think that would be a priority. Bob, that's an absolute priority. It's something that we need to address. Again, we started those conversations informally. You know, my suggestion would be that maybe to, you know, bring Attorney Lucas here to maybe, Kevin and I talked about that, maybe explaining to the board for the new board members. Floyd Dugas represents the Board of Education from the law firm Berkshire Moses and Devlin, but it's a firm out of Milford. They represent, I think it's 26 boards of education throughout the state of Connecticut. They're very in tune to what's going on at the state level, at municipalities, as well as with boards of education. You know, Floyd will hand you a spreadsheet and tell you what every teacher from every step in most of the area is making. And he's, you know, he'll explain it in a way that you're going to, you know, it's going to hit you in the eye. You know, I mean, I shared some of the information with Kevin and Bridget when they asked for it, actually a few months back. But I think it would be good to get him in, maybe even, you know, do an executive or a non-meeting for negotiation purposes to kind of bring the board up to speed as to where we need to be and how we should attempt to get there. Even if it's how do we approach the city.
And I would say that I think, you know, as Councilman Hoskin and I have discussed several times that, you know, we want to strike while the iron is hot, as the city is getting back on sound financial footing. And the debt payments are going to start increasing as some of those bonding projects have come to term of payment. We need them to understand that that money myriad of other folks that are knocking on their door saying, can we have some of that, can we have some of that? So I know it's definitely, Councilman Hosky's priority as well as.
And I will say this, I mean, the original Alliance grant was supposed to be 5 years. I think we're now into our 7th. So I do believe, and again, depending on what the legislature does, they can look at the ECS formula, which could hurt West Haven because we get I don't think it'll ever hurt West Haven because I don't think it'll ever decrease. But, compared to other municipalities, we receive a really high percentage of our funds, through state resources. But they always seem to manage to help the towns, in addition to the big Havens, Bridgeports, and Waterburys, and Hartfords, the towns just under that. We are West Haven, Ansonia, Derby, East Hartford, Meriden, Norwalk, Stamford, that's most of the towns that are in our, they're called DERBs, but the comparable districts. It's a great point, Bob, and again, long overdue, no question. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It's something we've been fighting and saying, we've been saying it for years, but we need to. No.
And perhaps after the creative draft would show that $7.5 million hole that we're in, for no financial contribution to the city, just because it's the money.
I agree with you. The only thing, again, I will say this in our defense is we really do a good job of living within the guidelines of where to spend the money. In other words, we have targeted the money, in my opinion, to the right places. But again, we don't know how for long. No, for how long.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody here for coming and for your input tonight. Again, it's to me, it's more than what the line items are. It's you heard what we're doing and where we're trying to be. So thank you guys. I know it was a long presentation. Budget's now in your hands.
I also want to thank all you guys for coming up and speaking and being so incredibly well prepared with information that will increase our knowledge base and how to help you guys. That's incredibly important. So thank you very much. All right, do we have any board comments on the board? I will start down that end of the meeting.
Happy to hear that. I'm so excited about our ENT. How many people apply for it?
54 hours.
54. We will be take 20.
Well, we were supposed to only take 20, but the panel of judges narrowed it down to 23 and really could not narrow it down any further without becoming upset. So we went to Neil and he, of course, granted us additional money for those couple of months.
I was excited to hear about the homecoming that's happening in January. And also, here, making sure the child detectives coming in. She was telling me that I don't know if enough people in the community know about it. It's the alumni meeting that comes out from the council center and the career center. As if, like what we probably many of us used in college, you have a career center, alumni, you get to use that and come back. And I know there's always talk in the community about, there's not enough focus on training, and it's really hurting our community. And so I'm just so excited to hear that the scholarships now for these students have not unfortunately. I think the community needs to really know that.
I just want to, Danielle just misspoke just slightly. She said it was annual. It's actually a 5-month thing, not annual. So every other month of those.
Some of our alumni that are already established members come back and offer direction or mentorship to what their opportunities are, whether it's college or trade or that what's using them in a different way. And whether it's a brain break or interactive math, being able to go and see one of the math teachers had a graphic organizer of steps from long division colors. And it really, I know it would have helped me when I was learning long division, it definitely would have helped my daughter. And so I connect with every single person who has kind of dug their teeth into learning new technology. I know it's not always easy. So thank you for doing that so that our kids can have to learn hands-on. Great thing to say.
We're lucky.
Save your throat, so you know, right? Mr. Butler. Morgan?
Thank you.
And I agree, I think anytime that they have an opportunity to earn free college credits as a mother of 2 college students currently paying tuition, I wish my kids would speak in court. I'm all for you, they should have more of a social life than I agree, but in any case, I think it's an awesome opportunity to add 2 more colleges and the trade schools to our repertoire of opportunities for our kids. So thank you very much for coordinating that, and making that happen. That is all I have. I have been working on committee assignments for the upcoming year for our new board. So I'll send an email tomorrow out. Everyone will chair a committee. So everyone that sits on the board currently will get an opportunity to chair one of the committees. And I did have a conversation today with Bob about setting up time for committees to meet. We didn't really do a lot of meeting last year. Obviously, COVID really overtook our minds and our schedules, but the chair of each of those committees will be able to call meetings as they see fit. We'll try to set up some time, either like 5:30 before our regular meetings. And then if you want to meet, you can have a meeting and then report out at our regularly scheduled board meetings. And obviously you're, I think, welcome to schedule time for that. If that's a little bit, you know, we just need to make sure that follow the meeting schedule. So, like I said, I'll send an email out tomorrow for the committee assignments. I think you're happy with them. I think that fit your personality, some interests that I've learned about you in this short time frame for the committees that we'll sit on. And next on the agenda, approval of minutes, B1. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January 3rd, 2022 meeting. A second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Captain Ian are stating, and I think Morgan is also not here for the last meeting, so there's 3 abstentions. Next on the agenda is D4 new business. I will entertain a motion for 22-01, the adoption of the 2022-2023 superintendent's recommended budget. Motion by Patrick, second. Second by Pat. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Oppositions, Jennifer and Bob. Any abstentions? Motion passes.
So the next step, we will prepare a booklet that will get to the mayor and council and give all of you copies as well.
Yeah, that's Matt, that's the Matt will get the.
Yeah, Tammy's got, Tammy will make sure that gets that to you.
Okay, great. The rest of the agenda is informational, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion. Second. All in favor?
Thank you so much, class. Thank you, everybody.